Vegas, baby, and the Big O, which is a little bit of what Oakland is attempting to avoid. And that's why Vegas might be the next destination for the Oakland A's. Hello, and welcome to our podcast, 1 year anniversary for Ari and Andrew and me. Say hi to Ari in Chicago with happy anniversary over shoulder. Hey, Ari.
Hey Phil, Andrew, happy anniversary. Great to meet the 1 year milestone.
Andrew, can you believe we kind of stumbled on a 1 year anniversary of the podcast?
I just can't believe it. It still doesn't feel like it.
Well, welcome to Double AI. We're the podcast on analytics and sports, and we made fun of Vegas and the Big O, as in owing money. But Ari, as we open this thing up, either Oakland's going to have a Big O or they're going to lose the A's, and Vegas looks like the first stopping point.
Yeah, Oakland athletics. I have fond memories of the stadium, Moneyball taking place there. I was at some memorable games, including one where the sewage got backed up and flooded into the dugout, and the players had to move like to these temporary benches they brought out in the outfield, and I could smell it from like the 10th row, to walking over power lines to get from one of the parking lots into the stadium. But all of that speaks to they need a new stadium, or massive uplift their current one. And as part of that, it's been kind of lock jammed for a long time between the team and the city. And now they're actually, they talked with the commissioner of baseball, and the doors is truly opening now for them to leave town. So that's increasing negotiating pressure on the city, since it is an economic engine for the city. But at the same time, this now opens up the franchise to move to other cities. And you talk about, even through expansion, what other cities might make sense. Nashville is a big one. Portland is a big one. But the other is Vegas, a long time on the radar. They seem to be holding the cards right now.
Well, that's fair to say. Love that play on words. From the Big O that Oakland would have to keep the A's to the big show and our Showtime update. I had to throw this one in there, guys. Shohei Ohtani last night, 7 innings, 1-run ball at Houston on the mound. He batted second and then moved to right field after he's done pitching. He's got 10 home runs so far. That's second in the big leagues as we record this on a Thursday. And now the next day, did you guys see where he's in the lineup today?
Number one,
leading off. That is amazing. So we give the big show plenty of show time. Now,
yeah.
And Andrew, let's move on to the Mike Stanton and his MVP early campaign.
Yeah, Stanton's having the best start to his career. He's had two-week stretches where he's been batting over 400 in each. He's showing much better strike zone discipline than he had in the past. He's moving away from his all or nothing stroke, a lot more of his line drive approach, just old school gap to gap hitter. It's really exciting to see, hitting just under 450 on balls to center and right. Just an amazing start to the year so far. And hat tip to Sarah Langs of Baseball7.com for sharing some of this information.
Well, then Ronald Acuna, we want to talk about some of what he's done so brilliantly well this year, abnormal to the industry. Cut his whip rate down from 30% to 13%. That accounts for him being one of the tops in big league baseball in home runs and runs scored. So far, he's taking pitches on the corner with spin, which is a lot easier said than done. And that's really it's all that movement, and mostly that lateral movement, that is been puzzling to hitters and umpires, and is why pitchers have had such success so far. All right, Ari, Houston does something well.
Yes. The Athletic reports Houston's providing furnished apartments for minor league baseball players at all levels, which is a big deal. We can go a little bit into that. So AAA Sugarland, AA Corpus Christi, High A Fayetteville, Low A Asheville, and rookie ballers at their complex in West Palm, where I used to work. And their owner, Jim Crane, Houston needs some good publicity based on what's happened in prior years. And so we're going to see if other teams follow the lead. It's possible Jim's disgraced former GM, Jeff Lunau, was part of the group that created the contraction. So that's interesting. And yeah, I love, minor league players, John Means, who I was part of the Orioles when we signed and developed him, put on LinkedIn to be a part-time, substitute teacher since they can't make the bills. And organizations should just make sure their players, well, first of all, the right thing to do, but for the success of the organization, they should just be focused on how can I develop as a person and a player and not worry about struggling and distractions like that. So it's the right thing to do. And I do sincerely hope everyone else follows the lead.
Well, that's what's most curious. Will the industry follow the lead in taking and paying better, feeding better, let alone housing better minor league ball players? All right, this coming weekend, a great deal of intrigue around the Triple Crown, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked like it was straightforward when we talked about Medina Spirit's win and favorite status going into the Preakness. But now we don't even know what's going to happen as Medina Spirit failed a drug test from the Kentucky Derby. Bob Baffert, the trainer, has been suspended. They're doing a second sample test, and if that comes back positive as well, Medina Spirit will lose the Kentucky Derby and no longer be eligible as a Triple Crown winner. And it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. So it's a mess, right? It's exactly what horse racing didn't need. Bob Baffert has been having some difficulty both over his career and recently. This is the fifth horse to test positive in the last couple of years that he's trained. Although he said that he has no idea how the drug got into the horse and he thinks it's a mistake. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Interesting that he and his lawyers negotiated with the Maryland Racing Commission to create a circumstance where they would get the big draw for TV in the race and yet satisfy the need for some oversight here. Andrew, let's stay with you and take a look at what's going on with soccer in Europe.
Yeah, so we talked about the All England final in the Champions League, and we mentioned that it was going to Istanbul, but there's now a considerable amount of concern that with the various COVID-19 shutdowns, the fans of these teams may not be able to go to Istanbul, and there's concerns about the quarantine periods and so on. So there's now discussion to move the Champions League. Originally, they talked about just moving it to Wembley and keeping it in England. The most recent seems to be moving it to Portugal, as Portugal and the UK have been opening up their borders. So we'll see what happens. There's not a lot of time left. They meet on the 29th for that final. But yeah, they'd like to have the fans there. Turkey's on a lockdown. Everyone's worried about fans traveling. So lots of economic incentive to make a decision soon.
Well, economic incentive means there could be a much larger gate playing it closer to home as opposed to a nation where it's completely locked down. Let's talk about more economic incentive, Ari, in sports betting.
Yeah, a couple big companies, one acquired another. So sports betting data has a giant Genius Sports, and they bought this player tracking technology company called Second Spectrum for $200 million. Second Spectrum, I've been a big fan of theirs. You could Google Second Spectrum and TED Talk, and it's just a very impressive one of feature engineering. But they do in-stadium tracking of data, and the Genius cameras, they track real-time movement in the NBA, in English Premier League, MLS stadiums to fuel the prop betting. And also Genius cut a deal with the NFL recently. So that was a good acquisition, I thought.
And is Clippers owner Steve Ballmer involved? I think he was involved early on with Second Spectrum, which is another indication. I think he was an investor early on. But yeah, that's really solid. And this has a chance to be something really big with the NFL season ahead.
Yeah, Steve does know a thing or two about technology, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, NBA, speaking of Ballmer and the Clippers, and Oscar Robertson's triple-double record stood for almost half a century, almost, but it's down now.
Yep, but there's a new all-time leader in there, and hats off to Robertson. Russell Westbrook broke that record now. If you could guess, 182 triple-doubles, which is incredible. And Westbrook's 32 years old, so you got to give him credit. And his team, the District, has a losing record, but should join the made-for-TV play-in games. But yeah, much respect to the pioneer, the Big O.
Yeah, Oscar did it and he did it without the three-point line, and he did it when no one even considered tracking him. That was, in retrospect, someone looked back and said, "Wow." And in fact, I believe it became popular when people in basketball started tracking what Magic Johnson was doing in triple doubles. Then they realized by looking back at Oscar just what a substantial achievement that was. Also in basketball, congrats to the WNBA. Season number 25 on the way. Some notes about that. Raiders owner Mark Davis is the new owner of the WNBA Vegas Aces. Seattle, the defending champ, although the Aces are the preseason favorite. They can keep everybody healthy. And guys, predictably, my favorite team and favorite nickname in the league is the Indiana Fever. Because if you're in Indiana, you have a fevered pitch for basketball. Andrew, close us out with a thought about the NFL that should make us all the wiser when the NFL is hosting or staging an event.
Yeah, the NFL is probably the best of the leagues at managing its brand and ensuring that it gets the ratings it desires. And we were talking about the draft over multiple weeks, and we're talking about the 49ers and who they were going to pick at third. And there was a lot of money being bet on that. There was a lot of people wrong about that pick, but there was a lot of conversation. And Pro Football Talk reports that league officials had reached out to the 49ers and asked them to hide their actual intent with that pick to build this suspense. It got us talking about it. But it worked. The draft was the second most viewed draft in league history, which is really amazing if you've been tracking our other conversation about viewership numbers across much of entertainment, actually.
Well, and so we have to give them credit for producing a TV show, but at the same time, in the future, maybe we should remember that the NFL was in charge, and this was not an entirely sincere, but rather a manufactured event in some regards. We'll just, again, for the future file. Last thought about that, and all right, we'll give this to you, given your background with Nielsen, the ratings for the draft better than the Oscars, but how about the Golden Globes, right?
Yeah, their viewership is going to go down probably about 100% since the entire show was canceled for now. Actually, one of my friends put a joke in Facebook. A former producer said, "Great news! I'm hosting the Golden Globes," and before I realized it was a joke. But yeah, no, it's a long time, epically popular show now being canceled.
Yep, number two, right after the Oscars traditionally in must-see TV or appointment TV. Well, guys, that'll do it. 1 full year, 12 months, and 52 weeks is a year. Still 52 weeks these days after we got through the pandemic.
500 weeks in 2020.
Yeah, yeah. So congratulations, Andrew. Congratulations, Ara. You guys are great teammates. Thanks for sharing a year on this podcast. We made it. Well done. All right, do us a favor. Point at the happy anniversary behind you. I'll do a screen grab of that. We got to see you too. Yep. And Andrew, point down there at that thing like that. There we go. All right, I'll make a screen grab out of that as we promote this. And that'll do it for us right now. We're really ecstatic that you've enjoyed it, that you've decided to spend time with us over the past year. I'm Phil for Andrew and Ari. We'll see you next week here at Double AI, the podcast on analytics. Take care.